Welcome to yet another episode of the East London Sport Podcast. My name is Freddie Carty, and as ever, I am your host. But that doesn't matter today. We have got an Olympic special of an episode, and I am joined here by the one and only Jona Efoloko, who is going out to Tokyo himself. Jona, how are you?
I'm all Freddie. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. Well, I guess there's only one place that we can start. Jona, how did it feel getting your call up to Tokyo, just knowing that you will be representing Team GB at the Olympics?
Yeah, it was definitely a very surreal moment. I'll be honest, Tokyo was not really my focus of this year. I had the European under 23s, and if I'm being honest, that was probably my main focus. But we competed at the Olympic trials, and they went really, really well. I managed to get two bronzes in the 100 and 200. And, that was a really good performance. I was really happy with that. But even after that, my main focus was still the under 23s. But then when I received the call and they told me that, yeah, I was being picked for the relay, it was definitely a shock. A very surreal moment, as mentioned before. Definitely one filled with joy and hope. Yeah, I'm very excited. It wasn't expected, but it was a really great surprise. Yeah.
Did that almost make it even more of an achievement that from what you've said, it kind of came out of nowhere?
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, I think it definitely surprised myself. Definitely surprised my abilities and really showed the trust that the British Athletics have. How they trust me. As how they felt I was good enough to be picked. So yeah, I think that gave it a more special feeling. Yeah.
And so when you said Tokyo may not have been your focus this year, was that a factor from things such as lockdown and COVID and kind of having what you could say normality when it comes to training, looking forward, being affected?
Yeah, definitely. COVID last year, the last 18 months have not been easy with, lack of facilities, lack of training. And at the beginning of the year, I also made a few changes around my environment. So, changing things quite drastically. I didn't think I'd be able to achieve something so big at this moment. This year was more of like finding my feet, getting back to, the level I wanted to be at. So receiving the call up was definitely, yeah, exceeding my expectations, which was great. Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, when you say changing environment, is that like training regime, the actual training environment? How did that play the part?
So it was pretty much all of it. So I did switch coaches this year. So, with that comes a lot of changes, regime, you train at different places, different environments, different training groups. So, yeah, that was the main change, I'd say. So with that, I was just using this year to find my feet more with my new environment. And yeah.
No, fair enough. So still on the subject about your call up to Tokyo, is there anything you're looking forward to in particular? Because I feel like when people hear about athletes going to the Olympics, it could be a cliche that people think, oh, I want to get a medal, I want to be on that big stage. But is there anything in particular you're looking forward to? Could be bits of Japanese culture. It could be places you've never visited before. It could be being back in the athletes' village. Are there any things that stand out for you?
Yeah. So if I was gonna say, explore the Japanese country, explore it, but because of COVID, unfortunately, we will be restricted to what we can access, which is a big shame because I've heard Japan and Tokyo is a beautiful, city. It's a beautiful place to explore. So I was really looking forward to that, but unfortunately, with the COVID restrictions, that may not be possible. But I think one thing I did say I'm looking forward to is just learning what it's like to be on the big stage. This will be my first big major competition, still 21, it's still like very early on in my career. And I think there's a lot for me to learn. So just being with, our Olympic athletes, but not just from the UK, not just from Great Britain, but all over the world, just being able to see how the best athletes work, how their mindset works, how their routines work will just be a great learning curve for me. And, which I think will propel me onwards. So I think that's definitely one of the main things I'm looking forward to. It's just learning a lot of new things, being around the team, speaking to those who have, been to 1, 2, 3 Olympics, and just understanding more about like what they've learned, and just a way to like shortcut my route up. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you mentioned obviously the COVID restrictions for when you're in Tokyo, so have you been told you'll be in one of those like bio bubbles where they try and keep everyone together, or is it different?
Yeah, I believe we'll be in a bubble. I believe we'll be in a great, just like GB bubble. Yeah, just to, stop the chances of like the COVID spreading happening. I also believe there won't be any fans in the track as well, on
Oh yeah,
the
no, I did
track
hear
as
that as
well.
well.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I think that the Japanese government are really clamping it down just to ensure that it doesn't spread. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but safety comes first at the end of the day. Yeah.
Do you think the lack of fans will have an effect? Are you someone that kind of feels that 12th man, as they say in football, or do you feel like it'll let you get your head properly in the game and be more focused?
No, I love fans. I love having fans there. I do. I think it just, like you said, it gives you that extra, that boost. When you come out the stands, you see people, you see the cheers. It does give you that extra adrenaline, that extra boost. So yeah, it definitely it's a shame that there's no fans allowed. But at the end of the day, the event is still the same. The goal is still the same, but for with or without fans. So I'll still be focused as much. But yeah, it's a shame that there's no fans. But again, yeah, safety comes first.
Yeah, still got to get the job done.
Yeah, get the job done.
So I thought I'd also ask you about your early career. When did you first begin to practice relay? Where did this journey all begin?
Yeah, so with sprinting, it's a sense of like, I do club meets, and then within these club meets, there'd always be relays. So since I've started, I've always done relay, but I didn't properly start practicing relay until I think it was 2017, 2018, 2017 or 2016, where British Athletics basically set up like a futures relay camp. So like for the younger, under 20s, under 18s, who were coming up into seniors, we would have like camps 2 or 3 times a year. And in these camps, what they'd basically do is like we'd learn, the relay skills needed, for example, like the correct hand position. We'd learn about the check marks. We'd, and it was a really good camp because you'd be with the people for like 2 to 3 days. You'd get to gel, you'd get to understand them more, work together, build that friendship, that teammate, camaraderie. I think I said that right.
Yeah.
Which is very important in relay. So that's when I started learning through those camps, learning the correct positioning in the hands, the check marks. And from then on, it was, it helped a lot because it then meant, because I'd learned the skills when I was younger, like when the transition to seniors came, it was quite a smooth transition because we'd know the skills already. So transitioning to seniors wasn't as hard as it would have been if we hadn't known the skills. So that's when it started, probably 2016, 2017.
So when you mentioned almost kind of needing that chemistry, that kind of, I think brotherhood's probably a bit far, but kind of knowing your teammates well, clearly in a relay race. Is that something that can't be understated? So hypothetically, if I was to get Usain Bolt, all these big sprinters, put them in a relay team, would I be right in thinking from what you've said that it may not go as smoothly as you think because you're not used to running together?
Yeah, it may not go as smoothly as you think because it's like the check marks in relay are important. So by check marks is we have we'll put tape at a certain distance, and when the ingoing runner with the baton will hit that tape, the outgoing runner that runs off. And check marks are very specific to the different individuals. So that's what we learn in training. In training, we'll learn, okay, the specific check marks for like each individual person. And it also comes down with things like hand positioning. Some people are more flexible than others in their shoulders. So some people can have their hands a bit higher, or you'll know with some people who have less shoulder mobility, their hands will be a bit lower. So these are things that you'll only know through practice. Oh, okay, I've been practicing with this person for like a month. I know he can only raise his hand to about here. So then you'll know. And also we have like a signal, a call for when the person reaches their hand. So we in Great Britain will shout hand, but in like different countries they'll say different things. So the Americans say stick, the Jamaicans they'll say reach,
Okay.
and when it's 8 other people, it's loud
It's a bit of a
and you're
mix,
listening for
isn't
that
it?
call. You
Yeah.
have to listen for that call. If you're not, you have to like get used to that person's voice. You have to like really listen to that person's voice, and that's only something that you can do through practice, through training. So yeah, it's very much, it really is very much a, you know, team thing. It's very much a bonding thing. I think it'll be really hard if you just throw people together and expect them to do well, but it's definitely a practice thing. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. You can't essentially have a fantasy dream team then
No, yeah.
of
Maybe if you
different
give them like a
sprinters.
month or 2 of training, then I think that would work. Yeah.
And so, where did the Olympic dream begin? Because I feel like everyone can pinpoint, you know, the start of their athletics career. Everyone can remember their first club, but at what point did it get to the idea that, you know what, I could compete at the highest level?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember, you know, I watched the 2008 Beijing Olympics, but I was quite young then. I was only 8 years old. But the main one is definitely 2012 Olympics. That was when I started thinking, oh, you know, it'd be amazing to be, you know, at the Olympics, just seeing how the crowd was like. I remember cheering Usain Bolt on, cheering Mo Farah, Greg Rutherford, Jess Ennis when they won. That's when I think I started saying, oh, wow, that should be really cool to be able to go to the Olympics, to represent your country. But I think it wasn't until I think 2016 was the European under 18. So that was my first like international competition, you know, which I won. And that was the first time when I think, you know, I started thinking, oh wow, like, because I knew I was good, like, you know, within the
Yeah, you got
country.
that
But then
self-confidence. Yeah,
yeah,
everyone
but then
has
it's
it.
like outside, and then it's like, oh wow, like I actually won like European competition, like best in Europe. That's when I started thinking, oh wow, like I could actually be good in terms of like international, worldwide, not just like within my country. I think that's when, you know, things started like, I think I really started seeing it more of like, okay, maybe I can actually like, you know, make this, I can actually see like a future in this. And that was also the year of Rio as well. So watching that as well, again, like
I want to
made
be
me
them.
more, like want it more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Want it more. Yeah.
And so you briefly mentioned London, and obviously there was a big focus about us hosting the games was leaving that London legacy. I know you mentioned you would have been fairly young, about 12 years old at the time, but
Yeah.
do you feel like you were taken in by that legacy? Do you think that did give you just that little push to think, you know what, I could do this too?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I was 12, but I remember I think I watched every single sport because I'm a big sport fan, not just athletics, but outside of sport, across all sports. And I remember watching, you know, every single one, sports that I'd barely watched before. I watched it. I was just in tune, you know, cheering for Great Britain, which was just really, really amazing. And on 100%, that definitely, you know, spurred me on. I think one of the biggest days was Super Saturday when Jess Ennis, Mo Farah, and Greg Rutherford won gold all in one day. That moment, I think, will always live in like Olympic history. And yeah, that was one moment that really spurred me on. And just to see, you know, British athletes doing so well at the Olympics was just so encouraging and so inspiring, and just made me think, okay, you know, if they can do it, why can't I? So I think that definitely spurred me on. Yeah.
And so I guess an interesting branch here then. So you mentioned when you were 18, going to these international competitions, etc. Your dual career, you joining UEL and deciding that it would be good to study alongside you kind of reaching this international level. What were your thoughts behind that?
Yeah, I think from a very young age, my parents did always, you know, drill into me how important education was. You know, it took me a while to understand the importance of it. If I'm being honest, I was just sports. So, but you know, can be a very short career. You know, people retire at the age of 30, 31, 32, and you're still even though you're old in terms of sport, in life, like 30 is very young, like very,
Yeah.
very young, and you've still got a long life ahead of you. And also with sport, like, there are injuries that happen. It's sad to say, but it's the reality. There are injuries that happen, career-ending injuries that can just happen and just stop you from doing the sport ever again. So I think it was always important to always have not a backup plan, but something alongside of it. And
Alongside,
that's
yeah.
why, I went down the route of education, just to have something, like you said, supporting me alongside of it. If, whenever my career would finish, I could hop into it. But also, I feel like education or whatever you do can also help you within the sport. So that was my thought process, just thinking long term, thinking, okay, like my career is only 15 years, then I've got a lot of life afterwards. Okay, what do I want to do? And that's why I decided to go down the university route.
So how would you think that education would help your athletics career as well? I'm not doubting it, but I find it interesting that that is something specifically that you've mentioned, that you feel that not only is it something you have alongside, but you think it can actually benefit your professional career too.
Yeah. So for example, I do business marketing. So in there, you'd learn certain modules. You learn about like social media marketing. You learn about how brands like advertise themselves, how brand, ensure that people see them. Things like that you can use, within your social media. I'm not the best with social media, but through my course, I was able to learn the different skills, and you can easily you can actually apply it to, for example, like your social media. For an athlete now, like the
It's quite
internet,
big
social
and quite
media, getting
important, isn't
yourself
it?
out there
Yeah.
is very important, because that's how you can get your sponsors, your followers. So the skills I learned through the education, through my course, I can easily apply it to, my sport, to help me like advertise, to help my name get out there. So that's how I'd say my sport and education can help you. Yeah.
No. That definitely makes sense. And so then going one step further, so you decided you wanted to go down the education route alongside your athletics career. You obviously will have been a sports scholar at UWE.
Yeah.
You would have had benefits that what I would say standard students, people just there to study, wouldn't have. How would you say that scholarship has benefited you on your journey to Tokyo so far?
Yeah, honestly, I think I can't thank UEL enough for what they've done. Definitely a lot of the support system there was amazing in terms of like, lifestyle, nutrition, psychologists, things that, like you said, normal student can't access, but things that other athletes outside will actually have to pay for. And it's not cheap. It's really not cheap to have those sort of like tools available to you, especially like things like physio, having them there was just really great. And I think one of the biggest thing that I'm very thankful for is the access to the gym.
The
When
Aqua
all the gyms,
East, yeah.
yes, when all the gyms were closed, when we weren't allowed to use any gyms elsewhere, but Aqua East, allowed elite athletes access to that gym. And I honestly can't thank them enough for that, because as a sprinter, gym is, it can be quite important. It's very powerful. It's a very powerful sport. You want to like be able to like apply a lot of power. So being able to access the gym and, still do my program was very, very like, I'm very thankful for them for that. So that helped me a lot. It allowed my program not to change a lot. So that was very important for me. And yeah, that's honestly, yeah, thank you for UEL for allowing me to use the gym. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure the feeling will be very much mutual. So the life of the Olympian, you kind of mentioned, for example, athletes having to handle their social media, that kind of thing. How does being an athlete affect your personal or your social life? Like what are the sacrifices that come from potentially seeing you on the podium at Tokyo?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think there's a lot. I think the biggest thing for me is, I would say, for example, like all my friends, I was not born, but I grew up in Manchester, but now I'm currently in London. So all my friends, all my family are up in Manchester. But I'm down here for uni, and I'm basically training like 5 days a week. So I barely go up to see them. I barely go up to see my friends, barely go up to see my family, because, you know, I'm training, you know, so you miss a lot of things. You can miss friends' birthdays, family birthdays. Your friends will go out, you know, you'll see on social media they're having fun, not like having fun, and you're just, you know, yeah, I have to go bed early
A
because I'm
bit of
training the next
FOMO, yeah.
morning. Yeah, I'm like stretching, or I can't, you know, even things like, you know, having been disciplined with what you eat, you know, you can sometimes, like, you know, go out with friends, and then, you know, they're having like burgers and all that stuff. You're like, you know, I can't do that
You're
because
gonna
I've
have
got
to get on
training
that kale,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Yeah, so sacrifices like that, not seeing friends, not seeing family, and especially this time of the year where there's a lot of races, like it's quite back to back to back to back to back. Like your schedule can be quite busy with traveling, flying out. So it can get a bit, I'd say a bit lonely at times, because it's just traveling, competing. So I think those are the biggest sacrifices. I think were hard for me at first, just not being able to be with my friends, be with my family as much. I think that's like one of the biggest sacrifice I'd say for like Olympian, or maybe I'd say any athletes really,
Yeah.
just the lack of time you have with like loved ones. Yeah.
And so, if you don't mind me asking, so obviously, when you become a fairly high level athlete, you know, in any discipline, any sport, you have the eyes of the world on you, whether that's through
Yeah.
social media or whether that's through press. Um, how do you deal with that? Has that been something you feel like you've had to deal with?
Thankfully, no. Thankfully, I think I'm still quite, you know, a bit lower, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, which I'm quite thankful for. You know, I've seen how like pressurizing it can get, like you said, having all the eyes of the world on you, making sure you don't do any mistake. So thankfully I haven't, but I think just from, you know, even from the support we have, like psychologists, things like that, like they sort of prep you for those sort of things.
Yeah.
You know, thankfully I'd say I have, you know, through even speaking to people, through speaking to training partners who have, you know, achieved quite highly, you know, understanding more, okay, what is required of a high level athlete. I think if the time comes, or when the time comes when, you know, I do have a bigger platform and more people are watching me, I think I will be more prepared. But thankfully for now, I do like it like this. No, I'm fine. I don't have many eyes watching me at the moment. Yeah.
So you're feeling good. You're still going to Tokyo. You're still getting all these achievements, but you're perhaps not got that spotlight on you just
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, I can still, you know, hop on the tube and no one will recognize me. So that's just how I like it. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
fair enough. And so I guess a natural branch from that is, what advice would you have for any scholars that may be in the position you were in a few years ago,
Mm,
or just any young athletes? Like if you had to give maybe one or two crucial pieces of advice to kind of take them to the next level,
mm.
what would it be?
I think it's just very simple. It's just believe in yourself. I think sport is very much, I always say it's very much 90% mental, I'd say, and 10% physical. You know, you can do all the training you want, but I think at the end of the day, if you believe in yourself, then I think you can achieve anything you want. I think, you know, the past year or so hasn't been the greatest for me, if I'm being honest. I think just because mentally I wasn't in the right place, but you know, through this year, just through being able to like believe in myself more, changing mentality, I have seen a bigger result, like physically running better, being called up for teams. So I definitely just say always believe in yourself and always count on yourself, because at the end of the day, it's your performance, it's on you. And you know, don't put too much pressure on yourself. You know, we all have bad days. We all have bad days, but from those bad days, I think it's very important that you learn from it. The bad days, I think, I think they're as important as the good days, because on the good days you're happy, you don't really learn much, but on the bad days it's where you learn, where you make the changes, where you adapt. So I think, you know, don't put too much pressure on yourself. We all have bad days, but I think the number one thing is, you know, always believe in yourself, believe in your abilities. You know, you're there for a reason, you're on that team for a reason, you're in that position you are for a reason. You know, you're not there by chance, but you know, you have the skills to be there. So, you know, believe in yourself and, you know, trust in yourself, and with that, then you can achieve anything you want. Yeah.
And so we'll probably look to wrap this up very shortly, but I have one final question for you, Jona. If there's one thing you're going to be doing for the first time in Tokyo, if there's one thing that you're going to do which you've never done before, that could be athletic space, that could be outside of athletic space, what's it going to be?
So I'm a big anime fan, and in anime, like they have, they have these big bowls of like ramen, which is really really nice, like with noodles, the egg, the meat. If run out, I really really want to try it. I really really want to try it because in the anime it looks really really nice. So I think that's one thing I'm kind of looking forward to maybe try the food out there, because yeah, the food in the anime looks really nice. So I'd like to
Got a
try
lot
it
of
for
respect
myself.
for that. Basing your nutrition off a cartoon. You never know. If it
Yeah, maybe
pulls
not too
off,
much. Maybe like towards the end, or like once a week, just to try it. Yeah, not too much.
who knows? It could turn out delightful, and then that will be your version of a Jamie Oliver show. You'll be scouring through all the anime, thinking, you know what, I might try a bit of that. I might try a bit of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you as ever, Jona, for joining us. This is the end of another episode of East London Sport Podcast. I very much enjoyed myself. I hope you have too, Jona.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks so
And
much.
we'll be looking forward to producing another episode soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.